I do a lot of talking about growth and transformation and expansion. And I think I fail to talk about that it's also really fucking uncomfortable. It's oftentimes really, really confronting, and resistance does show up. Like, what am I doing? You start second guessing yourself. You're second guessing whether you really want to do this. Maybe you go out and you accept the new job, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, no, actually, I take it back. I want to stay where I am. Expansion so often feels like unbelonging before it feels like freedom. About why expansion is so fucking hard. I almost didn't use the word fucking in the title. And then I went back and I'm like, who gives a shit, Jen? That's kind of the point of your message here today. You see, because old versions of me would have questioned whether or not I'm going to offend you. Are people going to judge me? I have to come off as being like polished and nice all the time. And, quite frankly, I like to use that word when appropriate. It's kind of fun and it feels a little edgy for me as, again, I've been expanding. So anyway, I kept the word. It's in the title. And as I said, it's kind of the point of today's episode. So this past weekend, I was doing a lot of work on a new program that I'm launching this summer, which I'll tell you about towards the end of this episode. I'm going to invite you to it. It's not actually a program. It's not a program. It's an experience, but stay tuned for that. And as I was doing some work and really laying out not only the next offering I'm going to bring to the world, but where am I going? And what are these bigger visions that I have? And I have them. They're there. And I started to really feel this uncomfortability in my body. I was feeling resistance, tightness in my throat. I'm someone who's super aware of how the body speaks. I coach people on this. Where are you feeling that resistance in your body? What feels really uncomfortable as you're growing and changing? So of course, I'm self-coaching and I'm introspecting. And there's this like part of me where my ego is like, no, like throwing a temper tantrum. We don't want it to be uncomfortable. It shouldn't be uncomfortable. It needs to just be easy and flow. And you know what? As I could feel inside of me this expansion happening alongside that part of me that's arguing and saying, no, I want to stay small because small is comfortable. That's where your nervous system is programmed, Jen, for safety. I realized that I do a lot of talking about growth and transformation and expansion. I coach people on this, and I talk a lot about how empowering it is, how liberating it is, how exciting it is. And I think I fail to talk about the reality that it's also really fucking uncomfortable. It's oftentimes really, really confronting, and resistance does show up. And sometimes you feel like you want to just go puke. Like, what am I doing? You start second guessing yourself. You're second guessing whether you really want to do this. Or maybe you go out and you accept the new job, or you start writing the book, or you hand it into an editor. And then all of a sudden you're like, no, actually, I take it back. I want to stay where I am. Right? So you start to doubt. You might doubt who you're even becoming. You're like, who are you? Do you really even want to change? Do you want to become different? Do you want to grow? So I've been really thinking a lot about expansion because it so often feels like unbelonging before it feels like freedom. See, we're seeking the freedom. We want the freedom, but as humans, we're very soft, especially here and I think in Western culture, because we want everything to be comfortable, right? So we want freedom, but we're unwilling to go through the discomfort to get it, the uncomfortability of change and the, essentially programming of new neural pathways that show us, oh yes, I can do this. I can expand. It's safe to expand. It's safe to do things differently. It's safe to be more me. I have a girlfriend, one of my very good friends, Kate, and she is moving to Italy. like really moving to Italy. She has been a citizen of the United States her entire life. She did live in Italy for 6 years in college and some years after, which put the bug in her and the dream in her to go back and become a resident of Italy. And any of you who've known anybody, or maybe you yourself have moved internationally, you know it's a huge deal, massive deal. And she started to take big, scary leaps of faith and take action before she was ready. And she said something to me in conversation about this whole idea of expansion and uncomfortability and things that were coming up for me. And she said, Jen, I don't think it's ever comfortable. I can tell you that every time I've been on a growth edge, every time I've been expanding, I am so fucking uncomfortable. And you just have to get comfortable being uncomfortable. And everything in me right now is freaking out, but I just keep going. And I know that I've been led here, and this is what faith is, Jen. I'm like, yeah, okay, duh. Thank you for the reminder, my friend. So this is what we're going to talk about on today's episode, the thing that we don't talk about enough, how uncomfortable expansion is. So buckle up and let's get to it. Inviting you along my own journey of expansion for the past, I think it's like 14 months. We're on episode, I don't know what this is, 58, 59. And really, I intentionally stepped onto the path of greater levels of growth and expansion about 6 years ago when I was in a dark night of the soul. And the dark night of the soul for me, I really came to see was this catalyst for me trying to figure out who the hell I am. Who am I? I was living with so many shoulds. I was a shapeshifter. It was really easy for me to morph into what I perceived other people wanted me to be. And people pleasing was pretty chronic. I was aware of it to a degree. I was aware of it in my 20s when I went to therapy for my first time. Every stage of my life, I would be aware of some of these painful habits of mine and constructs of mine, like codependency. But I didn't really fully understand it. But about 6 years ago, I hit my rock bottom low when I was like, no more. I cannot do this anymore. I actually feel like I'm dying inside because I'm not being true to my authentic self, but I don't even know how to be my authentic self. So I started on a journey. And when I started this podcast, I really felt very ready to start putting a voice to it. I've been running an online business for over 15 years. I've been coaching people, and people so often only know what you show, right? I mean, duh. They can only know you insofar as what you allow them to see. And a lot of people, outside of me, and especially in the online space and the health and wellness space, looked at me and they're like, man, Jen's got all her shit together. She's got a successful coaching practice. She's very knowledgeable in functional medicine. And while all of those things were true, there were a lot of things in my own behind the scenes that weren't going so great. And there were a lot of parts of me that I was afraid to even get to know, let alone show to other people. So this podcast really has become a place where you've gotten to witness my own continued growth in real time. And very often I'll say here in this space, I'm talking to you about something that's my current growth edge. I'm right here with you. I'm talking about this because it might ring true for you in some way or another, or it might trigger something in you, or it might inspire something in you. So sometimes I'm really bold here about things. And I realized in some self-reflection recently, I could still tiptoe around different things. And I ask myself all the time, why are you doing that? Where are you feeling that in your body? It's often my body that will say, hey, Jen, we're not really fully using our voice, or we're feeling really uncomfortable right now. There's resistance coming up. Why? Or I want to say something, or I want to talk about something, but I don't. And again, I go, why? What's there? It's all for us. This is very much how I coach my clients when they come here wanting to step onto their own path of continued growth and expansion. And I encourage them to take a look at what's coming up for them. Notice what they're noticing. Do they get tightness in their throat? Do they get butterflies in their stomach? Are they running to the bathroom with diarrhea when they think about speaking up in a certain way? All of that is feedback. Or are they not doing anything, right? Are they stuck? Are they frozen? Well, that speaks too. And I actually recently was recognizing that I was feeling really stuck because my soul has been longing for some expansion. And I have all of these brilliant ideas that are laid on me. They're really exciting on one hand, but then why wasn't I doing anything? Why am I not doing anything about it? Why am I feeling stuck? And then when I get stuck, I often get depressed. I start to feel down and then I beat myself up. So I'm a woman who has radically changed in so many ways. The people who are closest to me, the people who have known me for the longest amount of time, reflect that back to me often. Like, Jen, you are not the same woman you were a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. God, 20 years ago, I don't even recognize you. And while on one hand, that's very complimentary, sometimes I'm like, what? Is that bad? Really? Oh. And then I notice these little feelings that bubble up inside of me, like shame, embarrassment. And sometimes I look back at former versions of myself and I cringe a little bit. I'm like, oh gosh, who was I? Why did I say that? Why did I do that? And listen, I'm human. So I feel these human emotions. And I'll still say to you and myself, like, there's no place here for shame. Like, let's not beat ourselves up for what we didn't know when we didn't know. And we're all on a continual journey of growth, right? So in those moments, I will often realize that maybe I have some shame. Okay. And that shame is showing up for me because actually, not because I was someone who I'm not today, but it's showing up for me because I can see how I was self-abandoning, right? And whew, that doesn't feel so good. Looking back at old versions of yourself and seeing that you were self-abandoning, I can redirect the shame around that because again, there's no place for shame. Like let's not be embarrassed or shameful over what we didn't know when we didn't know. Like, can we be compassionate for ourselves when we were asleep now that we're awake? And I can look back and say, you know what? You were doing the very best that you could from the level of awareness that you had. And I can also use that as a reminder to not self-abandon again. And sometimes when I'm feeling stuck because I'm ready to expand and grow more, I'm feeling stuck because I have a fear that I'm actually not going to be true to myself, that I'll self-abandon again. And I can come in and course correct on that too. For me, part of this expansion in my life has included deconstructing parts of my religion, the Christian religion that I was brought up in, while also simultaneously expanding my relationship with God. I've not been throwing the baby out with the bathwater at all, but I've actually been taking God out of the box and I've been allowing myself to ask harder questions, to explore, to critically think, to challenge a lot of dogma and doctrine that was told to me by people who I perceived to be in authority. And I've been allowing myself to step into some spaces that religion, and I'm speaking specific to maybe some of the denominations that I was a part of throughout my life, but that I was told were wrong. And I would be lying to you if I told you that that was easy. Like none of that has been easy. And this, my point in sharing that is not really about the specifics of me deconstructing different things and challenging a lot of the narratives that I've been told. It's me sharing with you because when your beliefs shift, your when your language starts to change, when your identity is expanding, there's often a season that you step into of unbelonging. And let me tell you, I've been in such a season of unbelonging with my faith. My faith is personal to me. So my faith has grown and expanded and strengthened. But being part of a religious organization feels like you're a part of a club. And when you start questioning some of the narratives, the rules, the perhaps theology, doctrine, any of it, right? If you start to question it, you don't belong. And at least in my experience, this has just been my experience. I haven't been a part of a lot of religious communities where questioning was accepted. And I, being me, being someone who was always very hyper attuned to other people and hyper attuned to what they would react to and how I acted or spoke, I learned how to talk the talk. I learned how to speak the language. I called it Christianese language, and say the right thing so I wouldn't be rejected and so I would belong. Or I would just stay quiet and silent. And when I couldn't do that anymore because it felt like I was completely abandoning myself and I was being very inauthentic to myself, and I did start to speak up and other people disagreed with me, it felt horrible. So I'm like, oh, you're actually reinforcing my greatest fear that I won't belong here. Right. So fill in the blank with whatever it is that you might be growing through or how you might be changing or maybe your thoughts on things. Right. Again, I'm not saying that this is just about religion and faith by any means, but that's been a very, very big one for me. And here I have a podcast, The Daily Surrender, and I don't think I have a single listener that doesn't know that I talk God. I love God. And you can call God whatever you want to call God, divine, spirit, source, creator, because God's not a man in the sky, God's spirit. And it's a very safe space, I hope, that I've created for these types of conversations. And you might have specific beliefs within your relationship with God or your practice of worshiping God or your practice of learning about God that are different than mine. So my hope and my goal is that we can all come together and have these conversations and ultimately live a life that is founded and rooted in truth and really centers around love. And, I use the term Christ consciousness because I believe that we're here to embody what Jesus showed us how to embody, and that is the Christ mind, that mind of perfect divine love. And it's not easy because we're humans, right? So anyway, I digress. So what happens is when your beliefs are starting to shift and maybe you start talking about it, maybe you unbelong to certain places, maybe there were groups and organizations that you hung out in, and as you've grown, you've either outgrown them or they don't feel comfy or aligned anymore, and you step away and you're like, oh, I'm all alone. I'm like a sole person hanging out on an island all by myself. And it's really uncomfortable. And sometimes it can feel really lonely, and it can feel even like there's something wrong with you because we all want to belong, right? And here's the deal. You're not unbelonging, you're actually becoming. The truth is you can never unbelong. You're not going to unbelong. We all belong because we belong in unity to God, source, creator. That's the unification found in love, found in Christ. Again, whatever language you use around it, you know what I'm talking about because that's a frequency. That's a frequency of truth. So I want to get back a little bit here to the conversation around expansion. So as I've expanded, and honestly, I've been expanding publicly more and more, I've really noticed something. The fears, my fears, they don't disappear. They don't disappear. Sometimes, my friend, they get louder. I hear in my head, what if people judge me? What if people think that I've changed my mind too much? I catch myself having conversations with like fictitious followers or people out there in my audience. And I'm like, gosh, okay, we're spending a lot of time here hanging out, questioning if people misunderstand me, questioning if people think I'm wrong. Oh, what if the people who loved the old version of Jen because she felt really comfortable to them, maybe they don't love this new version of me? Ooh, rejection, painful. And I think that this is really important to say. Maybe the reason expansion feels so uncomfortable isn't because we're doing expansion wrong. It's because our nervous systems confuse unfamiliarity. Did I say I fumbled on that word? It confuses the things that are really unfamiliar to us with danger, danger, danger. You've heard me say this a lot on this podcast. Our nervous system is wired for safety and it perceives sameness to be safe. Every single client that I work with in a coaching container of any sort, doing a freedom journey where we bring on MDMA and we go deep into their subconscious mind, or maybe they're coming here to work with me because their body is screaming with these physical symptoms and they feel like absolute crap and they need to make some changes. We're going to bring on some change. You cannot keep doing the same old, same old, same old and expect different results, right? Isn't that the definition of insanity? So every one of us who seeks change, growth, expansion, transformation is going to have to move through uncomfortable feelings, resistance. You're going to hear your ego get really, really loud, my friends. So many of us learned really early on in life that belonging equated safety. So when we belong to a group, an echo chamber, a community, fill in the blank, when we belong to that, we easily can learn the lingo, the language, what's acceptable behavior-wise, right? And then we can become actors on a stage pretty easily. We could put the mask on, the mask of acceptance in this community. Okay, so this community, it's acceptable to say these certain things and wear these certain clothes and take these certain actions. But the rest of me, I'm going to just leave hidden. I'm not going to let them see that so that I belong and so that I fit in. And you receive very subtle reinforcement to this. You might receive praise. People won't argue with you. They might like you better, right? But if you're the one who comes into the community that has its set rules and you speak up and you say, I disagree. That's not, and I don't dress that way. Actually, I say fuck. And they're like, whoa, we don't use profanity here. That's a sin. You're like, why? And they start telling you why. And so either you leave because you don't belong, or you stay and you get comfortable with only partially belonging to the group and the rules, right? So that approval that we receive from anywhere in the world, from any type of an echo chamber, equals safety to us. So being agreeable for me definitely equaled safety. Like if I was a really agreeable person, and trust me, I was in most arenas, unless they were like really, 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 really tiny and there were people who knew me well and I felt safe enough to push the boundaries, be a little more edgy, be a little bit more myself. I just learned how to be really agreeable and amenable. And I learned very early how to, again, read the room. I was such a good room reader. And I think it is important to also note, it's a gift. I know that a gift of a Gemini, and I'm a Gemini, a gift of a Gemini is that we can get along with a lot of different people. So that's a gift. I really can adapt to getting along with many, many, many different types of people. I can talk to all kinds of people and find something in them to relate to. That's a gift. Where it becomes a slippery slope and it becomes more of a shadow side is when I'm morphing into being what I perceive they want me to be. right? When I'm denying myself, I'm self-abandoning who I am. So I learned how to soften myself, like really overly soften myself, how to shapeshift, how to become really digestible to pretty much anybody so I wasn't offensive. And maybe you can relate to some of this. I would love, by the way, to hear if you can relate to any of this. Like drop a comment here wherever you're listening to this podcast episode. You can shoot me an email at any time. I would love, love, love to hear where you are with this. And as humans, we love to tell everybody to be authentic, be you, be yourself. But we rarely talk about why any of us are inauthentic in the first place. And it's because most of us have adapted to staying safe and staying comfortable so that we're accepted and we belong. And that's a survival mechanism. So we learned who we had to be in order to belong. I know I did really, really early on. So when we stop the shape shifting, because you come to a place in your life, oftentimes it's around midlife for people, God willing, because I think it's a beautiful time where things get so loud and your body even screams like, no more, no more. You can no longer live inauthentically. You can no longer shut up your voice. You can no longer live to please everybody else around you. And at the end of the day, crash and feel like you're dying every day, right? We're dying to be seen. We're dying to be known. We're dying to be known by ourselves. So when that season comes for us and we stop the shape shifting, we stop the people pleasing, we question all beliefs, we start taking up more and more space, we use our voice differently, we're not afraid to say fuck. The body will often respond before the mind catches up. And it's not, again, because this growth and expansion is wrong. It's not responding because it's telling you don't expand. It's because the body remembers. And this is why expansion so often can feel like unbelonging before it feels like freedom, right? So you might feel butterflies in your stomach, a pit in your chest, tightness, sweaty armpits, a racing heart. You might feel those things. It's okay. I'm sure you've heard the term, feel the fear and do it anyway. As long as you're really clear, if you're really clear that this is your authentic self, well, then lean into it. Lean in, right? As the expansion's happening, I have another podcast episode. We'll drop it here in the show links, actually. I forget what number it was. Maybe I did it last year. It was on, as the soul is expanding, the ego is contracting. So there's this contraction that happens. So we want to lean into the contraction, much like we do during childbirth, right? So I mention here a lot, midlife being a season that's very invitational, and it's often a time when things get super, super loud. And I think that that's very much part of our divine design. Our children are getting older, so we finally have some space to think about ourselves. As a mom, and I'm a mom of 3, I know what it's like. I, at one point, had 3 kids under 4. And, your life is consumed with these human beings, and as it should be. But you have very little time to think about you and who you are other than being their mom. But they don't stay little forever. They grow up. And your identity is not just being their mom. That's not who you are, true essence of who you are. So midlife oftentimes feels like this spiritual earthquake for so many of us. Those masks that we wore, they stop fitting. And your body gets louder and louder and louder in how it's speaking. It's like, psst, hey. Maybe you've got headaches, insomnia, chronic anxiety. Oh, if you've got chronic anxiety, my friends, look underneath that, start questioning why. What are you anxious about? Where's the fear? Why is it showing up in your body? Maybe you've got gut issues. Your body is begging you to please, please, please slow down and start to take a look under the surface. Those symptoms have metaphysical roots. They do. I promise you. I've seen it in myself and in hundreds of the clients that I've worked with. So you may have been a chronic people pleaser up until now, and you just can't anymore. It's so exhausting. You feel such utter fatigue every time you abandon yourself by pleasing somebody else. And you start realizing that your life that worked for you before, it doesn't quite fit anymore. And you keep trying to do the same thing. And it just feels more and more and more constrictive and painful. And there becomes this burning desire to know, who am I really? What do I actually like? Not my kids, not my coworkers, not my husband. What do I like? What do I want to do with my time? What are my beliefs? Not my inherited beliefs, not my programmed beliefs. What do I believe? What were the beliefs that I actually inherited that are actually not really mine? I've never questioned them. I just took them on. What parts of me are performing? What are the parts of me that are performing as if I'm on a stage? What actually brings me joy? What makes me feel really, really, really alive versus really apathetic, blah, right? There comes a point where the discomfort of staying the same becomes so much greater than the discomfort of changing. And that, if you're there, my friend, if that's the threshold you're standing on, oh, congratulations. You have a beautiful choice in front of you to keep sitting in your pain, and I promise you it won't go away, or to lean in, to start allowing yourself to expand and to get really comfortable being uncomfortable, but know that freedom is on the other side. So, honestly, in all of this, obviously, I'm sharing this with you because I recently had some self reflection around my own uncomfortability and my own expansion and where I was staying small to stay quote unquote comfortable. And I decided that I wanted to create an experience. I'm not going to call it a program because I don't want to call it a program or a course. That feels so heavy. I don't want heavy. I want light. I want playful. I want experiential and experimental. And I'm creating a program called the Summer Self-Reclamation Experience. Oh my gosh, I said it out of habit. I said program. No, we're going to erase that word. I'm creating an experience called the Summer Self-Reclamation Experience. And I'm doing this not because I think any of you need another course or program to do. You don't. You're busy, burnt out, exhausted, most of you midlife women, right? And God knows we have enough programs out there. I have bought so many that I've not even finished over the years, but I probably have bought more than you because I'm an entrepreneur and we have a habit of doing that. So, my friends, this is not a course. It's not another thing for you to achieve. It's not something that if you do everything, you're going to be fixed on the other side. This is an experience that I'm inviting you into. It's an adventure. It's an invitation for you because I think so many of us are standing in that really uncomfortable middle space. And we don't need more information coming at us. What we need is more space to explore who we are, to experiment and remember. I want us journaling poolside. I want us walking beaches and watching the sunsets and sitting on the porch in the summer and drinking a cup of tea and talking to the birds as they're chirping, or maybe it's talking to a friend as we rock on a rocking chair. I want us like taking ourselves outside with our cup of coffee and paying attention to who we are and what lights us up and what brings us joy. So this summer and this whole program is not really about becoming someone new. You don't have to become someone new. You just need to become more of you. So I really am inviting you in this experience to remember who you were before all the shoulds got so loud in your life. And we're going to do it together in this container. It starts mid-July. You can get on the waiting list. Look for the link in the show notes here. You can email me waiting list. You can drop in the comments waiting list, whatever works for you truly. I'm going to open up the registration at the end of June. I am so excited for this because I'm going to be doing this alongside of you. We will have some live calls. I'll give you all the details. If you get on the waiting list, you'll be the first to know when we have it all out there. But we're going to really light ourselves up and remember who we are together this summer. So in wrapping all of this up, if you feel like you don't fit into the old spaces the way you used to, if people don't quite know what to do with who you are today and they're uncomfortable with who you are today, and then sometimes that makes you uncomfortable and you want to pull back into your shell, or if parts of your old identity are like falling away and you just can no longer self-abandon and keep yourself silent and you're feeling a little untethered, I promise you, my friend, you're not lost. You're not alone. You might just be in that sacred season where expansion feels, for a little bit of time, like unbelonging before it feels like freedom. And what if this discomfort that's showing up for you is not proof that you should turn around and go back to the old comfortable cave you were living in? What if it's proof that you're finally leaving the rooms that you had to shrink yourself to fit into? Think about that. Stay with yourself here. Maybe the work is not about becoming more or becoming someone different. Maybe the work is finally allowing you to be you. Maybe the work is you saying, fuck it, to all the other shoulds and rules and roles that you've played that are not true to your authentic self, and just being you and standing with confidence in who God created you to be. As always, my friends, continue that daily surrender so that you can step into the abundance and the freedom that God has for you. Until next time, my friends. Thank you for joining me on the Daily Surrender. If today's episode spoke to you, I'd love to hear your reflections. Send me a message, share this with a friend, or leave a review. Remember, true healing and freedom come when we let go, surrender, and trust that God's way is so much better than our way. Until next time, my friends, keep surrendering, keep rising, and keep walking in peace.